Hi all. So in this video we are going to learn about the object oriented model, and we will be using Java programming to learn more about this object oriented system. I know you might be familiar with Java programming language. Okay. So here if we start with Java. So Java is based on the OOPS concept. So OOPS is nothing but object oriented programming system. Okay. And okay, see if it is recording or not. Okay. So yep. So here if we are going to learn about the object oriented programming system, we need one of the programming language that uses this particular concept so that we can see how is this concept inbuilt, or what are the feature of this concept, why do we use oops, and what is actually the object oriented model of programming. Okay. So if you are familiar with this language Java, then you must have written some codes, and when we write the code in Java, then we as a programmer, we need that the code should be reusable, of course, and easily maintainable. Okay. So these are the basic two requirements we want as a programmer, so that our code is efficient, right? This is the efficient way of writing the codes, right? Then of course, if these are your goals, then definitely you must know this object oriented programming model, because this helps us to write or to make our code reusable, easily maintainable, and an efficient code. Okay. So we must have seen concepts like subclass, or maybe superclass or parent class, subclass also known as the child class, and superclass also known as the parent class. So these are some concepts of oops we might have heard about. So in this course we are going to learn about what are these actual features of this object oriented programming model, starting from the basics. Okay. So we will discuss the programming model to write the code. So basically this oops is a programming model. Okay. And it helps us write code, and those code are secure, scalable, and of course they are easier to troubleshoot. This is a very important feature, that if you are writing the code, that should be easier to troubleshoot. Okay. Easier to debug and easier to troubleshoot. It should be scalable. Okay. And it should be a secure code, right? So that is why we prefer a good programming model to write our code, right? Okay. So we will be starting this by exploring what this object oriented programming model is. Okay. So this object oriented programming, and what does this means, how it is used in Java programming. Okay. And also we will be learning this concept with the help of certain examples that I will be showing you via the practice exercises, and also by doing the code part along with this course, so that you can get the concepts of how this object oriented programming is embedded in Java programming. Okay. So this we are going to learn about. We will also be learning about the classes, and the various instances or the objects that we create from the classes, and also the constructor, which is a very important part of that, and also the representation of this entire in a single goal, or in a single code, right? So if we consider like what are the classes or so, so basically we can represent any object, any physical object that we see, right? In our day to day life we can represent any physical object as a part of class or as a part of code. Okay, we can code any physical object. Now if we learn about this, then definitely if we think of this physical object as a code, or if we can code this physical object, we need to represent this physical object in the form of a class. For example, let's take an example of a simple tree. We see tree in our day to day life, right? So this tree can be represented as a class, right? Tree class. Now this tree will be having certain attributes or certain properties, like you can identify any tree by its height, or by its type, what type of tree it is, or by its trunk diameter. Okay, so every tree has a specific diameter or so of its trunk. So these are certain properties of a tree, right? So when we represent any object, any physical object as a part of code, we need to represent it as a class where we define the various properties of that particular object, and also we attach to them certain behaviors. Like for example, for tree, tree can grow. Okay, so we can have one behavior of the tree like it is growing. So these behavior are also known as the functions or methods that we introduce for a particular physical object. So like I said, for any physical object we can code. Okay, like doing the code means representing that physical object in the form of code. Okay, so when we are trying to represent a physical object in the form of code, we define the physical objects as a part of class, where we define its properties in the form of these attributes, and also we assign them to certain behaviors, where we define what sort of functionalities that can be done as a part of this particular object. I mean, what are the properties, and as well as what are the behaviors or functions of this particular object. And if we combine the everything into a single package, we define it as a class. Okay, so we will be discussing more of this when we try to code it as a part of the some exercises. Further, if you see some built-in Java libraries also, okay, you might have used some built-in Java libraries as a part of your coding part. So these built-in Java libraries also leverage the concept of oops. Okay, so this is very important, we will be seeing this right now. So basically, when we start to learn about the OOPS concept, one basic thing that comes to our mind, that is also one of the pillar of OOPS, that is abstraction. So this is a wide topic in its own. Here we will be discussing about how Java supports abstract class. Okay, and we will be also learning about the interfaces, how they are important. So abstract class and interfaces, and also we will be learning about how it is easier to abstract a system. Okay, so if to abstract systems, so this is one part, right? And then we will learn about what this concept of abstraction is. So we will learn about the what the concept of abstraction is, what are the inputs or outputs. Okay, and what the system actually does. So basic details of the abstraction, however we don't need to get bugged into that because it is entirely a wide topic in its own. So we will be covering all those parts as a part of the oops concept pillars. So these are the basic concepts of the course, or this particular lecture series, where we will be learning about the oops concept. And for learning purpose we are using the Java programming language as for practicing our concepts, right? So we will be focusing on the concrete examples or some real life examples, and that to make the theoretical idea of the object oriented programming to be the real. Okay, so we will also discuss about some design models, right, that we use when we try to code or when we try to depict any physical object in our code perspective, right? So for example, while you are building a system, okay, you need to have this design model with you. The concept of design model is that when we build a system, when we represent a system, we need a kind of design model, and that design modeling depends upon what you are building. For example, if we are representing an employee, and we need to represent for the employee, we have two types of employee. One is the analyst, and one is the salesperson. However, both these categories of people belong to the employees group. So we can have something hierarchical inheritance or something like that to represent this part, right? So we can use this hierarchical inheritance so that we can represent an analyst and salesperson, which are who are nothing but a subclass of employee base class. So there is one parent class that can have many subclasses, right? So here employee could be the super class, and these analyst and salesperson could be the subclasses. So these are the design model that we follow when we are trying to depict the entire system. Okay, similarly, if we have a much wider if we want to represent a much bigger system, like we have something some class called person, then in the person we have one other class called employee, and again for the employee we can have the two subclasses. One could be a salesperson, or another could be an analyst. So for representing all these things we can use this kind of model. So you can just model your data accordingly, so based on the particular design model you choose, right? So this is also we are going to discuss in this series. And apart from that, it is very essential to recognize that the particular language that we have chosen for our practice part is Java, and Java is a purely object oriented programming language. Okay, so in the next upcoming video we'll see what this object oriented programming or object oriented model means to us. Okay, so that's it for this part, and keep watching. And in the upcoming videos we are going to practice some exercises based upon that. So till that, I would say goodbye, and thank you very much for watching.